Welcome to episode 2 when we're talking about the witch farm. We're both in a ghost investigation team. This is Becky and I'm Chris.
Hello.
And it's part 2. So if you haven't listened to Danny Robbins' podcast, you need to. It's a prerequisite because we will be spoiling the hell out of it, won't we?
Yes, we will.
So in episode 2, The Watcher, we begin with Liz and Danny. And Liz is expressing how much you don't want to live in a haunted house.
As much as some people think they do.
Yeah, which I totally understand. I mean, it reminded me of Nashville Street where I lived, and even at the time you just put up with it, and hers was far worse, by the way. You know what I mean? But even if in any sense, you don't want to be there when it's getting you freaked out.
I genuinely, and I say this to you all the time, I could not think of anything worse. I'd have to move house. I could not live in a house where there was activity. Even after coming on investigations, when I come home, I think of my house as my little safe place where I off and just not think about it. So yeah, I could not do it.
Yeah, many people move house, don't they, because of that?
Yeah.
And it goes into saying how Liz is such a skeptic. She's no idiot. She's no fool. No. She's like, I don't believe in this nonsense.
Which makes it a bit more credible to me.
Yeah. Whereas anyone who's predisposed, like us, who is into it, I think they'd jump to that conclusion far faster, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all in your head. It's imagination. You're already open to it. But if you like her, if she's a skeptic and it's not even on her radar.
Yeah.
For it to then happen, I think that makes things a little bit more, I don't know, a bit more interesting.
Yeah. So Liz describes she can actually feel the presence. She's like, I can sense when it's here, and I'm someone who can't sense things and doesn't believe in it. That's a big thing, isn't it? But they have moved into a new house. I don't know if, Becky, if you've ever moved to a new place and thought, I'm in a new, unknown, who's that? What's that noise? You have to get used to your house, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And I can't really, it's not something I've really experienced. Obviously, I lived with my mum for 25 years or whatever, moved into my house now, which is a new build. So I've never really, I think when you move to an old farmhouse with character, I'm picturing, beams, and I'm picturing something that's got, it's already been lived in, it's got, you can imagine it having almost a story of its own already.
Well, a new build doesn't have a personality as such, does it? Nope. Whereas an old house, you're like, someone's had a personality here.
Yeah, and that's something to me, it sounds silly, but something to me that I quite like about a new build, unless obviously it could be built on anything, but it's quite nice to know that someone hasn't died in it.
Yeah. And as for her feeling like she's being watched, again, I've had that as a kid. Yeah. And I've not had it since I've lived on my own, ironically. But when I used to be a kid and living with mum, I would have a certain time where I'd be like, I just get that sense of unease. So, yeah, I understand what that is.
Yeah, horrible.
Which I've not had that anymore. So then Bill suggests basically a countryside madness and an isolation sickness, which you've got nowhere to run. There's no one sort of nearby. I can imagine that would be a factor.
Yeah, and I think but again, silly, but I can only relate to my experience being in the house. I'm in the house on my own a lot with James away, and knowing there's a neighbour next door who, if anything happened, I could run next door or over the road or behind me. There's houses everywhere. So to be in a house on my own with no one around me, I think that it would be far more frightening.
Yeah. Are you aware what a liminal space is?
No.
Liminal space is a place that should be occupied. An empty shopping centre.
Mm-hmm.
It's eerie because it's not how it should be.
That makes sense. That's like when we go to investigations, like when we've done the cinema.
Yeah.
like that where you're sitting in a cinema and you expect it to be full and there's 4 of you sat in there in the dark.
Yeah.
That's quite scary.
Yeah, open places, yeah. But I was going to say, I'm countering that argument because a farmhouse is meant to be empty.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's kind of...
And they knew that, you know, going into it, they knew that's where it was. You know, they knew it was remote. That's what they wanted. They wanted a remote house.
Yeah, and they describe it as, you know, idyllic, beautiful, and in its own grounds, and you want that remote, yeah.
So, and the pictures do look beautiful. It doesn't look scary. It doesn't look like a house that, you know, from the pictures, I was picturing this big menacing building. But actually, it looks really quaint and nice.
Yeah, quaint. Yes, that is not threatening.
No.
Yeah.
Not.
So as they start discussing it like we are now, the footsteps start again. And that brings about the fact, I mean, Liz suggests, you know, did it know we were talking about it? And that it raises the thing, can watching paranormal programs open you up? Because, you know...
I hope not.
Yeah.
It was coming down the stairs, wasn't it? Is that right? Drops on the bottom step.
Yeah. But
as if
typically a slippered sound rather than the heavy boots.
Yeah. Which again, it goes back to what we said in the previous episode about it potentially being 2 different entities.
Yeah. So I wouldn't imagine anything too dangerous coming at me with slippers on.
But then the thought of a little old lady or, you know, a child, or no matter what it is, I would still be terrified.
So yeah, talking about ghosts as they are, I think the psychology is a big tick for opening you up. If you're talking about a ghost and something drops or falls, then yeah, I think that really does open you up to thinking it's a ghost. Without
a doubt. And I always think this, even today I've been at home working and there were bangs and bumps and knocks and creaks and I didn't think about it. Whereas if at that moment in time we'd have been sat in a room saying, can you give us a sign? You're instantly opening yourself up to think that, well, that must have been answering, give me an answer to my question. And even like after the last episode of us talking, we were chatting for half an hour. I went to bed for about an hour after because I put something on the telly because I thought, it does make you think. It makes you start to think about things that you wouldn't necessarily think about.
So that's a psychology, but would you say there's a reality to it? Because I also think that if you are researching the paranormal, I think it may, that's question mark, I think it may open you up.
So yeah, I guess it's like when we go on an investigation.
Yeah.
We open ourselves to the light and the protection that opens our mind up, and then we close off that protection at the end of the night. Which to me, I hope it does work, but it's more for me mentally to close my mind off and not think about it.
Yeah.
So I think I think it does open you up, but I think that's all psychology as well. I think it's all mental.
Yes.
You know, I think it's like you get a skeptic come to an investigation and technically it shouldn't make a difference, but sometimes it closes things down.
It does. Because I think ghost hunting and opening into spirit world is first and foremost in what you're beaming out, isn't it? Yeah. Good point. So yeah, the sound of the slippers or whatever come along the landing and down the stairs. Wearing slippers immediately made me think, well, it's an ex-tenant then, because
you
know,
comfortable. It's somebody comfortable in the house.
Yeah, we've had houses where we've gone and it's just been old tenants saying, why have you done that with my shed and why have you put that wall down? You know,
almost living life as if nothing's changed.
Yeah. Next, it was large temperature changes.
From one room to another, I think, wasn't it? Like one room would be boiling and then one room would be freezing. And
well, it was. They did say it was located in a specific way. And when they pinned it down, it was the electrical area,
right?
The meters. Now, cold, you would expect. even spiritually, I was talking to Jacob, my son, about this. He's big in physics, and I was saying, what would you say a cold spot was in physics? If a spirit was present and there was a cold spot, and it's not on top, we say that they're taking energy out of the thing. And I said, does that make sense? And he goes, yes, it's about heat energy exchange. Physics does show that if something is taking the energy out of the air, then it will get colder because they're taking the heat.
Wow, see, I never understood why a cold spot would be a thing, but that makes sense.
Yeah. But getting hotter is weird. We've always had it get cold, haven't we? But we don't have heat.
But then you watch these programs, don't you, where they've got a thermal imaging, and there's heat spots. And
yes, that's true.
why I always think that, why is it hot? Because you associate spirit, with cold. But I don't know that one.
No. So it's around the energy of the electrical meter. Now I looked online about this and put about cold spots around electricity meters, and someone online had said there's a cold spot in my house and just in part of the landing. And he looked into it and he found that the electrical meters were on the other side of that wall. And it's because there was only one layer of breeze blocks. It was far easier to install rather than doing it a double wall cavity, and it's just easier to put on there.
So it's a natural explanation.
Yeah. Could be. This is an old farmhouse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going to make it as easy for themselves as they can.
Yeah.
Then the defunct utility business, they'd said that they'd had the tests, loads of tests, and they were satisfied there was no leakage or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all well and good.
Paid it, weren't they? They adamant that they paid the bill.
Yeah. So it goes back to talking about young Liz, how she moved around and she'd done all these things that meant she was not naive, was she? She was very worldly wise.
Yeah, and she wasn't scared easily. You know, she was a bit of a daredevil, really.
Daredevil, yeah, brave and confident.
Yeah, she'd done all.
Bill, she described as an intelligent man, creative. So both of them were people who thought outside of the box. They were like, not just your run-of-the-mill commoner, were they?
No, and like you say, the fact that you've got all of that with, and then mix into that the fact she doesn't even believe in spirits and the paranormal. That she's a good witness, isn't she?
She's you can trust what she says. The next weird agenda here is the pig, Lucinda. Yeah. So they get this lovely pig, don't they? And she was saying how you could tickle its belly, lie down with it, beautiful thing.
Like a pet.
Yeah. The next stage is the footsteps become more brazen as the spirits basically close in and get closer. Now we've had spirit Sam, and we know that you know when he's come. The temperature drops and you're like, it is freezing all of a sudden.
Also, there's just, you were saying earlier about that feeling that you get. I can just sense it. It's not, but he has just got a presence.
Yeah.
You can feel it. So yeah, I can completely understand what that's like.
But even though the three of us felt the Sam spirit come closer, the meters didn't move.
No, they didn't.
It's not measurable.
And he can do that. We know that he does that. He can manipulate the Gauss.
Yeah.
Or his little grey box, as he calls it.
Yeah.
But he can manipulate that better than any spirit we've ever had. So to me, that says that they have to almost want to do that. It's not a case of just being near it and it goes off. They have to put their energy into it.
Mm-hmm. That brings me to the next point that Liz says it was like it was toying with us. And as you say, it is doing these things on purpose.
Yeah.
It wants to be known, doesn't it? Although there's two things, remember, and they both want to be known, which reminds me Kieran and Evelyn go on to say 2 spirit noises, 2 temperatures. It just reminds me of Sam and Ruth,
Yeah.
Sam being what we thought was the oppressive spirit, and Ruth being the protector of us, the two spirits who seem to stay together. The incense, the sulfur, we have experienced that on
100%.
investigations, yeah.
And they were even on, if you're talking about the Ouija board, they would almost fight. It would be
Yeah.
No, yes, no, yes, no. They were fighting on the board.
Yeah. Kieran goes on to say about fear spreads, which I've always said when I'm running the session, I make sure for the rest of the team I stay in control, at least on the front of it, so that you lot don't freak out.
Well, as soon as that was said on the podcast, that literally made me think of you, because I feel if you were scared or showed fear, that'd be gone. I'd be like, right, I'm out. See you later. You know, we talk about the night 2 of York, and we talk about when the demon and all of that, and you had the like Esther's method, and you had the words being shouted. I've never seen you move so quick. So I could sense your fear in that, and that made me more frightened. So I think everybody had kind of sensed that, we'd have probably all ended up running out.
Yeah. Kieran talks about phantosmia, what did he call it? And the brain does do weird things. There's no denying that. People who have head injuries, their personality can change and stuff like that.
About the smell, was that? Yeah. See, that I've never experienced that, but I can imagine your brain can do crazy things. So I imagine it can do that.
Yeah.
But again, it's like when everything's happening at the same time. That's, if it was just smells, then fair enough. But you've got the footsteps, and you've got 2 different types of footsteps, and you've got the electricity, and there's all these. It's all happening at once.
Well, you've got multiple witnesses. Surely that's the thing. The brain doesn't control 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a thing of words being planted. You can spread information by suggestion, isn't it? You know? Yeah. If you started saying, "Oh, that'll be Spirit Dave," enough, then your kids will start saying, "Oh, it's Spirit Dave," to whatever, even if it isn't.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
You can spread things without meaning to, can't you?
Yeah. So the bill issue has to be faced, and Bill starts to say how these customers have pulled out weirdly from his businesses. But surely anyone who's been self-employed, and even at my workplace, you're busy as hell, and then everything just dips and you've got no work on. It's just up and down. That's just business. And when you are having trouble at home, I would say that's just a bad coincidence, and you start blaming everything on that thing.
I thought the same. And like Karen said, we were going into a recession, and people weren't spending money on luxury items. So I do think that, as you could attribute it to the house, but to me, that could have always happened. That may have always been the case.
Yeah. So the pig goes crazy.
Yeah.
Pig goes absolutely bonkers, and I looked into pigs going insane online, and turns out that sows, the female pregnant sows, they get, like many animals do, if you go near their children, if they're pregnant, basically, they'll react differently. But I think Lucinda was an only pig.
Yeah, it said she had a pig, so unless they got her when she was pregnant.
Exactly, that would be the only thing I was going to say.
It spread, didn't it? It went to other animals.
Yeah, it went to a pig, 2 cats, a guinea pig, dog, and 6 goats.
And they even said, I'm pretty sure they said that it would be very, like, it isn't as if, a particular disease would jump to all of the animals. So that's weird to me.
It is weird.
Unless there was something on the land that they were eating that was killing them, the other farmer was putting stuff down. If I don't know, you don't know. They could have been poisoned, or
weed killer in the water.
Yeah, it could have been anything, but it adds to the mystery.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it would scare they'd be scared by that. That would, imagine living there and that happening. You've already got weird stuff going on in the house, and now all your animals are dying.
As soon as you introduce death on top of a possible curse, you're like, right, well, that's us next.
That'd have been me out. It would have been up for sale off.
Yeah. Evelyn says, through stress, you can feel like you're cursed, as we're saying, everything's on top of you. But the area is rich in witchcraft. I'm not sure it ever says that they knew that.
No, I don't think it does say they knew that.
No.
Well, the town is very small, isn't it? And I assume that they know that people who live there for a while know the backstory, or I would assume, like we do with Pendle witches, like I think you probably hear about the history.
Yeah.
But you don't think, I better not move into this house because hundreds of years ago there could have been a witch who lived here.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah, Pendle witches. So the area is rich in witchcraft, says Evelyn, and witchcraft has been known to cause blights. I mean, known as in mystically said rather than facts. But 40 planes had crashed, to call it the plane graveyard. But it's so damn big, that place, that surely everything's got more statistics to it.
Yeah, and I don't quite know the area that they were talking about when they said the 40 planes. I don't know where they mean exactly, what particular area it is, or if it's
It's a mountain range, isn't it? So you can imagine it's got to be huge.
Yeah, and you do hear about planes crashing in mountains, and also you don't know how long that time period is either.
Yeah, no, that's true. And Kieran cites confirmation bias, which is something I've had myself. For example, a workmate asked me if I ever hear from another workmate, and I said, "Oh, she's not posted on Facebook for months." And then that night, she posted on Facebook, and I was like, "Wow, I've brought her into existence." But then again, confirmation bias is, well, how many other times have you thought about someone you've not heard about and they haven't posted on Facebook that night?
You wouldn't have given that a thought. You wouldn't have given it a second thought. Hadn't.
No. But when the situation rarely lines up, you're like, wow, that just, because you notice.
Yeah.
So the next weird thing is the toilet rises up. There's something wrong with the plumbing.
Yeah, and I couldn't quite picture that. I couldn't quite picture what it was, but it sounded like the bricks were coming up, and it was.
I think if the toilet unsettles and I don't know, the pipes would move underneath the house.
Yeah.
Just lift up the whole system, all the plumbing works, and move up and down. Which, well, what would cause that? I don't know. Water that's coming out of the tubes. I don't really understand it.
Oh, but it sounds odd, doesn't it? It doesn't sound
like plumbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the plumber comes and sees nothing. So goes. So getting back, it's happening. So it's going up and down. And all he says is like, I came here 20 years ago and my apprentice got freaked out.
Yeah, wouldn't stay in the house by himself.
Yeah. Mrs. Holborn, I thought I'll make a note of that. She was a previous tenant. Is that the slipper lady? We don't know yet.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
And all the radiators came off the wall, and then he said day after day, well, night after night, that it come down and come back.
Which is weird, isn't it? Like, that's weird. That's unusual. And he prides himself on being a professional as well. He said he came back and checked 2, 3, 4 times, and they were definitely right.
Yeah, and on the Facebook page, they were talking about, was he using the wrong kind of screws and then trying to get the radiators back in the same holes and doing a bad job. But he says, I am a professional. And I'm like, okay.
And you wouldn't say, would you? You wouldn't be like, well, I am pretty shit at my job, but I'm going to protect it. But yeah, you can only go by what he says.
Yeah. But, why would... Again, we had that. I've had similar things with spirits who were like, that window, I always have it open. So we've had a window open all the time. And the spirit said, because I always had it open. And so, I don't want radiators on my beautiful farmhouse. It's an old farmhouse, Yeah. Kind of makes sense, but that's a lot of energy.
It is. And it's also, I just keep coming back to that. Where does that physical mass come from? Like, how do they do that?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know, we get it all the time, it happens, but that's something that I really want to understand, is how, if they're moving tables and doors and radiators, how?
Yeah, well, we've had bang on the shutter, if you recall.
Yeah.
We've had the double bang in that cellar. We've had the paints flying around above that door. The door closed on us at Dalton Mill when we first went there. We just stepped outside, and the door it should have blown in, but it blew. It sort of. We just turned around and it was shut. We were like, "Is that a sign?"
That's back.
So but that's
and
obviously
got Sam's footsteps at York.
Yeah.
And you heard footsteps, and that, to me, that's the same. That's still a physical something. It's touching something. There is a noise coming from it.
Yeah. Energy of some sort, but yeah, it seems like they can build it up, savor it, and then expel it. I don't know.
Or use the electricity meter.
Yeah, use the meter. Yeah. So that was pretty much episode 2. It's a great story, and I look forward to episode 3.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to give it a listen. Maybe not tonight, maybe tomorrow.
No, maybe tonight. And I'd just like to finish the video by saying that my book is now on Kindle, called Into the Darkness. It's hit the shelves on Kindle, and there will be a paperback version coming soon.
And it's bloody fantastic.
Fantastic, yes. So yes, if you watch this video, please subscribe to our White House Investigations YouTube channel, and Talking Paranormal is also us on YouTube. Thank you, Becky.
No worries. Thanks, everyone.
See you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.